Welcome. The subject of this lecture is Origins Part 2, Genesis 4 through 11. After the fall in the Garden of Eden, eating of the fruit, there is recounted a cascading series of acts of violence, damage to the earth, disruption of community, loss of shalom, loss of the presence of God. Already in the garden, we have seen the loss of community, the tendency of Adam and Eve to blame one another, to blame the snake, to separate themselves and hide themselves from God. In chapter 4, we have the first murder, Cain and Abel. And this again over rivalry. And in this fratricide, this killing of brother against brother, the curse is given against Cain because of what this somehow does to the ground. The blood of his brother calls from the ground. And while Adam already is given a curse that cultivation of the earth will be difficult, for Cain it will no longer yield its strength, and he will be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. And even worse, Cain went away from the presence of the Lord. Murder becomes something that is easy to do for trifling reasons. Later in the chapter, we have Lamech killing a man for wounding him, a young man for striking him. And he boasts of this to his wives. And he boasts that, well, if God could somehow protect Cain, he's going to protect me even more, with no basis whatsoever. A sense of defiance, of self-affirmation, of vengeance. There is also recounted the strange tale of the sons of God and the daughters of men, that when people began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all that they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. And it mentions these Nephilim, giants perhaps, being on the earth in those days, when the sons of God went in to the daughters of humans who bore children to them. These were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. This particular passage is very difficult to understand. We don't really know what it refers to. But somehow there is a transgression of boundaries between the heavenly and earthly realms, with those who have power taking what they want without consideration. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, there are works called the Book of Giants, which mentions the Sumerian hero Gilgamesh. And the related books of Enoch connect the sons of gods or God with the angels who have compromised their proper role in obedience. That human life is limited to 120 years is an effort to limit disorder. And finally, we have the flood story, where things have gotten so bad that God resolves to destroy what is living on the earth. Now, among the ancient Near Eastern texts, there are other accounts found of a great flood. And for purposes of understanding Genesis, it is helpful to contrast it especially with the story of. One of your readings is on this as well, a reading by Freimer Kinski, who shows how comparing an ancient Near Eastern text can help us understand the biblical text. In Atrahasis, there are differing reasons for the creation of humanity. In Atrahasis, of course, being written by people who are polytheists, there are many, many, many gods. The problem or the reason for the creation of humanity is that all of the work of feeding the gods goes to the lesser gods. The great gods, the Anunnaki, made the Igigi to work for them and feed them. And these minor gods begin to complain. They groan and blame each other. And they appeal to the higher gods to take away their workload. It is they who have the toil and the drudgery. And so they ask that a mortal be created, that he may bear the yoke and do all of the work of feeding the gods. And the idea here is that one god should be slaughtered, and the gods can be purified by immersion. Nintu shall mix the clay with his flesh and blood, then a god and a man will be mixed together in clay. And those people who are created are then going to do the work of feeding the gods. By contrast, the reason for the creation of humanity in Genesis is, let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, etc. So humans here are to be the representatives of God and to reflect God's wise rule upon the earth. That creation is done by combining the dust of the ground with the breath of life from the breath of God, or perhaps the spirit of life. And it is that which makes a living being, a human. And the human is given the task of tending the tree, tilling the ground and keeping it, but not for the purpose of feeding God, but actually tending the garden so that they themselves may eat. And Atrahasis, the creation of humans, leads to a problem, the problem that will eventually be solved by the flood. And that is that the humans have become so numerous that the country was as noisy as a bellowing bull. And the gods can't sleep anymore. They are losing sleep. Various solutions like disease are created in order to sort of limit the population, or a limiting of supplies for the peoples, a scarcity of plant life. But that does not work, and so finally a flood is commanded to destroy humankind. In Genesis, the reason is that the Lord saw that the wickedness of humankind was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their heart was only evil continually. There is continued violence that we have seen represented by the Cain and Abel story, by the story of Lamech, cascading violence. And this has corrupted the earth. And it is possible that this is animal life as well, which has become corrupted. problems arising from the flood in Atrahasis are that the killing of all the humans means that the gods are now hungry because nobody is doing the work. This does not really have a parallel in Genesis. The flood is always intended to have a limit, and God is going to start over. The remedy to the overpopulation in Atrahasis is to find ways of limiting population. So there's the creation of a third category among the peoples, women who bear and women who do not bear, so that there will be demons that snatch away babies, that there are women who have a position that are not allowed to have children. There are various diseases that are created, all sorts of ways to limit population. For God, there is the remedy of what we would call the first law and the first covenant. So first of all, there is a limit on the shedding of blood. God has given green plants, all green plants, to eat. And now God gives everything. So it is permissible now to eat meat. However, they must not eat the blood of the animal. You shall not eat flesh with its life. For your own life blood I will surely require a reckoning. From every animal I will require it, and from human beings, each one for the blood of another. I will require a reckoning for human life. So first of all, you are not to eat the blood of an animal, and there is a reckoning for the shedding of human blood. So whoever sheds the blood of a human, by a human shall that person's blood be shed. For in his own image God made humankind. It is also clear in all of this that the life belongs ultimately to God. God makes a covenant. I am establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the domestic animals, and every animal of the earth. And never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood. And never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth.